A single pattern has toppled the world's most powerful empires for over 500 years. And today, the United States is standing exactly where those nations once stood. This isn't speculation. It isn't conspiracy. It is a documented, historically repeatable collapse cycle that Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union all followed almost step by step. And the shocking part, the United States is currently at stage 5, the stage where the unraveling begins. To understand how this happens, we must go back in time, because empires don't fall because of one disaster, or one bad president, or one economic shock. They fall because of a slow-moving pattern that begins long before anyone notices. At first, everything looks like success. Then comes the arrogance, the overreach, the money problems, the division, the crisis, and finally, the transformation. Every empire has followed some version of this script, and as we walk through the 7 stages, you will see the eerie similarities between the past and the world we live in today. The first stage is the easiest to understand. It's the rise. The golden era, the moment when a nation transforms from ordinary to unstoppable. Spain, in the 1500s, is the perfect example. Imagine a kingdom that suddenly discovers unimaginable wealth in the New World. Gold, silver, mountains of precious metals shipped across the Atlantic. Spain becomes the richest power on Earth, almost overnight. Cities boom. Armies expand. People believe they are chosen by destiny. The future looks infinite. Britain goes through a similar rise in the 1700s. A small island with enormous ambition. The Industrial Revolution ignites. Ships circle the globe. Factories roar day and night. London becomes the center of world trade. The British pound becomes the global currency. The empire stretches so wide that people say, the sun never sets on the British Empire. It feels like a permanent reign. Then there is the Soviet Union. Born from revolution and built on forced industrialization, the USSR rises from chaos into a superpower. Factories appear out of nowhere. Cities grow. The government promises equality, unity, and unstoppable strength. On paper, the plan looks flawless. To the rest of the world, the Soviet rise appears fearsome and undeniable. In all 3 cases, the early stage is defined by ambition, growth, and belief. These nations appear invincible, but hidden inside every rising power is the seed of the next stage. Hubris, the belief that nothing can go wrong. That success is permanent, that the future is guaranteed. This is stage 2. The age of delusion. For Spain, delusion meant assuming the gold would never stop flowing. Kings spent money faster than treasure fleets, could bring it in lavish palaces, endless wars, extravagant luxuries. Why save when another ship loaded with silver would arrive next month? But money is like a river. It can surge and it can dry up. For Britain, delusion came from dominance. When you rule the oceans and control global trade, it becomes easy to believe that no rival could ever surpass you. Britain looked at its empire and assumed it would last forever. The system seemed unshakable. Its leaders believed they could control the entire world indefinitely. The Soviet Union's delusion was different. It believed its planned economy could beat capitalism by sheer force and control. But behind closed doors, factories were inefficient, shortages were common, and government officials manipulated numbers to hide the truth. As long as the illusion looked strong, leaders convinced themselves it was real. But this false confidence leads to stage 3 overextension. The moment when an empire tries to do too much, too fast, and stretches itself beyond its limits. Spain began pouring its gold into wars across Europe. Year after year, armies marched, ships sailed, soldiers fought, and every war cost more than the last. Spain's wealth didn't make it strong or great, made it reckless. Britain faced a different kind of overreach. Its empire grew so massive that maintaining control required enormous money, manpower, and military presence. Rebellions sparked across the globe. Every continent needed attention. Every crisis demanded resources. The empire had become so large that it could no longer sustain itself. The Soviet Union channeled nearly all its strength into military competition with the United States. Tanks, missiles, nuclear submarines. The spending became endless. The Soviet economy buckled under the weight of its own weapons. The military didn't protect the country. It drained it from within. Once an empire reaches this level of overextension, the next stage is unavoidable. Stage 4. The money problem, the part where financial decay becomes impossible to hide. Spain's financial mistake was simple but devastating. It flooded Europe with silver. When too much money exists, prices rise, inflation explodes. Suddenly, Spanish money buys far less than before. Ordinary people suffer. Businesses collapse. The economy spirals. Britain's problem was debt. As the empire expanded and wars drained the treasury, Britain borrowed enormous sums. At first, it seemed manageable, but interest payments grew. The debt ballooned. The empire became financially trapped. The USSR took a more tragic path. It didn't admit financial decay at all. Instead, the government covered up problems with fake statistics and propaganda. On paper, the economy was booming. In reality, the shelves were empty. Workers were frustrated, and the system was falling apart from the inside. And when people begin to feel the decay when prices rise, wages fall, debts mount, or shortages spread, that's when an empire slides into stage 5, social unraveling. This stage is defined by anger, division, and internal conflict. Spain experienced riots, rebellions, and deep tension between classes. The poor blamed the rich blamed the government. The monarchy blamed foreign enemies. Society fractured. Britain faced revolutions across its colonies, political turmoil at home, and rising resentment toward the cost of maintaining the empire. Citizens questioned leadership. Nations under British rule fought for independence. The empire began to crack. The Soviet Union experienced one of the most dramatic unravelings in modern history. Long lines for food, collapsing faith in the government, rising nationalism in different republics, strikes, protests, and a generation of young people who no longer believed in the Soviet dream. Confidence evaporated, and when confidence disappears, collapse becomes inevitable. Historians agree that stage 5 social unraveling is the most dangerous part of the cycle. It is the warning sign, the point where a nation still has time to reverse course, but usually doesn't. And here's the part that matters most today. Many historians believe the United States is now in stage 5. Look around. Political polarization has reached levels not seen in decades. Trust in institutions, government, media, banks has collapsed. Economic inequality continues to rise. Culture wars dominate public conversation. Debt climbs year after year. Social frustration grows. Confidence weakens. These are the classic signs of an empire entering the unraveling stage. But stage 5 is not collapse. Collapse is stage 6, the breaking point. The moment when something finally snaps. Every empire in history has a breaking point on its timeline. Spain's breaking point came when it went bankrupt multiple times. The gold stopped saving them. The debts were impossible to pay. Foreign armies challenged them. Spain went from global dominance to a weakened regional power. Britain's breaking point came through the massive economic shocks of World War I and World War II. The wars drained the treasury, shattered the economy, and forced Britain to dismantle its global empire. When the financial pressure became unbearable, the empire dissolved rapidly. The Soviet Union's breaking point was shockingly fast. In August 1991, a failed coup attempt triggered a chain reaction. Republics broke away. The central government collapsed. In just 3 days, one of the most powerful empires on Earth disappeared. Stage 6 is the point future historians circle in textbooks. The crises. The tipping point. The moment when the illusion of strength collapses in an instant. But there is still one more stage. Stage 7. The aftermath. The part of the story most people forget. After Spain collapsed, it became a smaller, quieter country. Respected, but no longer feared. It survived, but the glory days ended. After Britain lost its empire, it reinvented itself. It focused on finance, culture, and diplomacy. It adopted After the Soviet Union fell, 15 new nations emerged. Russia shrank dramatically in power and influence. The world order changed. And this is a truth history teaches us: empires rarely do, they transform. They shrink, adapt, or fracture, but life continues. What changes is their place in the world. The most shocking part of this entire cycle is how invisible it feels while it's happening. When you live inside an empire, everything feels normal until the final moment. Collapse always seems sudden, but the warning signs appeared decades earlier. Small cracks, slow decay, growing tension. And then, one day, the ground gives way. Spain ignored the warning. Britain ignored the warning. The Soviet Union ignored the warning. And many nations today are ignoring the same pattern. The United States, according to many historians, is entering the dangerous middle of stage 5. Not collapse, not doom, but the moment when a nation must choose whether to correct course or continue sliding toward crises. The story matters, because history doesn't repeat perfectly, but it does echo. Human behavior does not change. The same forces appear again and again. Greed, fear, ambition, denial, overconfidence. These forces triggered collapses in the past, and in the modern world, they wear new masks, dead bubbles. Financial speculation, political extremism, misinformation, global tensions, and technological distractions. The lesson from 5 centuries of history is simple. No empire is immune, and every empire believes it is the exception until it isn't. But collapse is not destiny. Stage 5 can lead to renewal, reform, and reinvention, or it can lead to crisis, fragmentation, and transformation. So the question now is the one every historian is asking. If the United States is truly in stage 5, what comes next? Will it pull back from overreach, rebuild trust, and regain stability like Britain? Will it fragment like the Soviet Union? Or will it face an economic reckoning like Spain? No one knows. But the pattern is already in motion. The 7 stages have begun to reveal themselves, and the world is waiting to see whether America will break the cycle or become the next empire added to the list written by history.